We talk about the Cubs broadcast, including Boog and more.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Alongside Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thank you for being part of the show and making us your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day. Like the video and comment anything below. Today's episode is presented by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Today, we are going to react to Boog Sciambi's interview with Kyle Stanley on Kyle's Cubs channel, The Setup Man. I will post the link to the full interview in this episode description. Kyle does a great job with his channel. We have a nice relationship with him. And Sam, this interview hit me in a lot of places I really didn't expect, and I'm excited to play a few clips and react later. But first, we're going to talk generally about the Cubs broadcast situation on both TV and radio.
Okay.
So I know the broadcast situation is very near and dear to us.
Yes.
First of all, from 1947 to present, the Cubs have only had 5 TV play-by-players.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Brickhouse, Harry and Chip Carey, Len Casper, and Boog.
Yep.
Boog is an elite broadcaster.
Mm-hmm.
He has a great story of how he got to where he is. And a lot of that he talks about in an interview he did a couple months ago with Dan Le Batard, who he did radio with in Miami back in the 90s and early 2000s. I'll put the link to that in the description too. I remember Boog was a major hire for Marquee and the Cubs prior to the 2021 season.
You like the hire too.
Well, and many of my friends know how involved in this industry I am, how much I follow it. I remember getting a ton of texts that day he was hired. Just like when Len left, it was very similar. And Boog loves and respects his craft. My issue is, and I really want to be thoughtful here, does he love and respect broadcasting the Cubs? Because yes, he's an elite broadcaster. Here's a dude that has a 6-figure deal with Marquee. He's got a 6-figure deal with ESPN. He just broadcasted the World Series 2 years in a row on ESPN radio. He's elite, but I want him to be an elite Cubs broadcaster. And after 4 years into the job with the Cubs, in my opinion, Sam, I don't think I hear his connection to the team. I only hear his connection and desire to be great at this, which I respect, but there's no connectivity to the team on the north side. None.
It's just beautifully said. I said this from the day he was hired. I felt like this from when he was hired. I agree completely. I enjoy listening to him do Big 12 on Mondays basketball. You're right. He is an elite broadcaster, but sometimes, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the movie. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Replacements. You ever seen it? The football movie?
No, not a big movie guy.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, first of all, yeah, you are. But anyways, the point is like they got a really good quarterback, but because of the strike or whatever, they go out and they bring in a different guy, and he's not as talented as the other quarterback, but he fits in better with that team because because of who he is and what they are. And like the Cubs. The Cubs need a local broadcaster. Like if you're going Harry Carey versus Boog in terms of actual broadcasting multi-sport talent, it's no question, right? Like Boog is that good at those things. But that's what made Harry special, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like it also is this thing with Marquee too, where I felt like when the Cubs went to Marquee, I've used this analogy a lot. it became corporate. It went from like a real fun, that one spot you go to that's just in your neighborhood where everybody knows your name. You order some food, you sit at the same spot, you see the same people, to, oh, they took down that place and put in a chain that everybody has. It just felt very corporate, and Boog fits that bill of a very corporate, non-Cubs specific broadcaster. And I actually think he's gotten better. I think every year's been a little bit better. And to his defense, he hasn't really had a very good team to really sink into. And, like, for example, Len Casper, his first moment for me that I remember was that walk-off homer for Aramis.
Yeah.
It was when that team had a chance to win a division. This team hasn't had a ton of those moments. And I thought he nailed the Morel walk-off against the Sox in 23 and certain things. But you said it perfectly. I'm just rambling because it's my turn to talk. I really have nothing more to add. You said everything perfectly.
I was crushed when Len Casper left.
I remember.
And maybe he'll be back one day. That's fun to dream about. It's what was announced by Jeff Agrest of the Sun-Times on Monday.
Yeah.
I was actually just about to email him after school.
Really?
To confirm Pat and Ron's contracts. And that was the news on Monday. Pat and Ron are now signed through 2026, multi-year extensions. By the way, Boog and JD are both signed through 26 as well. So they're all lined up under the same parameters. Of course, JD did have a lighter schedule this past year, where they would bring in a lot of subs and things like that into the rotation. And from time to time, Marquee will try the 3-man booth. And I'm not a huge fan of that.
No.
If I had access to interview Boog, I don't know how much of it would actually be about the Cubs, because as a listener, I don't think I'm running to my phone respectfully to hear what he has to say about the Cubs.
It's unbelievable that you and I have a show together. Can I just tell you what I have written down?
Yeah.
So I don't, a quick behind the scene curtain. I usually don't write down stuff for a show, but every now and then when I feel it's important, I'll jot some stuff. Here's what I have jotted down
It's
about
a big show.
Here's what I have jotted down about Kyle's interview with Boog. Good interview, but don't really care that much about what Boog has to say about Cubs right in front of me. Just to remind, I just don't. I just don't. I know I listen to him every day during the season. I know his philosophy, and it's very much similar to Carter's and Jed's and Craig's, and that's great. And they can enjoy that together. But that's just not them, by the way. It's baseball in general, that new school sort of philosophy, and it's like, that's just not how I roll, man. I'm more of a mixture, I do think, but I'll save that for when we listen to his interview. So go ahead.
Well, couple other things I want to go over before we get to the clips on the other side.
Yep.
One thing I do want to reveal that I hinted at during the season, I didn't really listen to Marquee this year.
Yeah, you did the radio.
I would mute the TV. Yeah. I'd listen to Pat and Ron either on Odyssey app or Sirius XM. And that was my routine. I love Pat and Ron. They do a fantastic job.
Well, to cut you off, they're exactly what we're referring to. When you listen to them, you feel like you're listening to a Cubs broadcast. Go ahead.
I do, and I love the sounds of baseball on the radio in the summer. But to the point about Boog, what he has to say about the state of the Cubs, I think his responses with Kyle did produce a mixed bag of sorts. And possibly even him being dismissive and quite dismissive of fans' opinions about their favorite team.
Mm-hmm.
And that was over on Kyle's Setup Man channel, where he talked to Boog about the Cubs, Craig Counsell, this word urgency. I hadn't heard that one before. This word process, that was a new one, as I'm being snarky.
An Eberflus word.
And a lot more. So we're going to review a few different clips right after this. Today's episode is presented by Game Time. Whether it's a Cubs game, a comedy show, or a concert, I love going to live events. And now Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The experience of searching for and then buying tickets on Game Time is simple. Plus, Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it?
It's game time.
51-minute interview Kyle Stanley, the setup man, did with Boog. And we have 4 clips here that add up to about 7 minutes. So make sure to get over there and listen to more of it if you so choose. The first clip is the longest one, about 3.5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
On Craig Counsell and this expression, sense of urgency. You may see a pattern, Sam. Is it fair to say a pattern in some of these clips? I think I've heard some of this conversation before, and Kyle is having it now with Boog.
You could use the word urgency. You could use the word intensity, like you said, because when I look at 2024 and I compare it to 2023, in June of 2023, Dansby's having a meeting with Rossi and the guys and saying like, hey, we got to turn this ship around. Whereas in 2024, it was more like, hey, it's July, but we'll hit our stride eventually. There wasn't just that like intensity or urgency. And I think that was the big thing from fans, was just like, hey, where is that? And to your point, like, I don't know that Craig's that guy, but we did.
I would interrupt and say, like,
okay.
Look, I would interrupt you and I would say, from the fans to the media, even like to my position and the access that I get, the idea that anybody thinks they have any idea of when there is actually a sense of urgency is just false.
Okay.
Like that you're, doing Blues Clues or following the breadcrumbs in terms of like, now there's urgency. It doesn't work that way in this sport, man. It's like, even last year, there wasn't, more or less urgency. I think that for Craig, it was just like, look, the players, like the guys who were not playing well have to play better. That's it. And they all knew it. There's nothing else to be done. And the year before they played better. I think what you're misinterpreting is he wasn't frustrated. It's that by September, now you start to September, you're always, if you're not going to make the playoffs, you start to ask about going forward. You start to get asked more about going forward. And what happens is that even if you get asked that question in August, you're still messaging for this year. And what he did was he kind of gave into messaging beyond 2024.
Okay.
But like, there was nothing about, it changed nothing. And it certainly changed nothing in the clubhouse. I don't know what else to, there's a funny, I would still maintain that there's an aspect, like I did sports talk radio for a long time. And baseball is my love and it is my passion. And the most popular sport is football in our country, and it's not even close.
Right.
And I would say that the footballification of the way we analyze sports is such a disservice to most sports, but especially baseball. And I would further say, if the phrase sense of urgency were never used again, it would be just fine, because it's just not a thing.
All right, there's clip one. I did want to play the full context of it because urgency, Sam, is something you've referred to multiple times on this program, and he is basically throwing cold water in every part of it. What were you? What first of all, your initial thoughts on the interview and this idea of urgency? What Boog had to say about it?
Thought it was a good interview. I thought the right questions were asked. This part is not. If you asked me before you played the clip and I hadn't heard it, exactly what he would say, I'd say almost exactly that. I knew that is how he felt, and that's the problem. I mean, not that he has a say, but there's a lot of people that feel that way. I guess what I would say is this. First of all, I'd like to return back with all due respect to what I said in the first segment, and I don't think what he says matters that much. And I mean that with all due respect. Like if I were talking to Boog, I would not want to talk to him. You said it beautifully. I just want to echo that.
Yeah.
Too much of anything in life is not good. Too much money can be a problem. Too much of anything. Doesn't matter what it is. I believe that the Cubs had too much this past year of next day. Forget about yesterday. We're just the next day. Today's the only thing that matters. This. I thought the Cubs were too robotic as a team. Was it their biggest problem? No. Their biggest problem is that they don't have a star on their team. We say it every single show. But and then the second biggest problem was they didn't have a guy to shut down close games. Mm-hmm. But it just felt like everything was so cliche. The announcer cliche, next day. And it's just too much that no one's asking you to be me. I wouldn't hire me if I were a manager because I'm too much the other way. We blow a 5-0 lead in the 7th. I'm not over that until 2 weeks. You can't manage a team like that. I'm not advocating to. But I believe that the Cubs were too much the other way of, all right, hey, we just lost another 3-run game against the Giants at home, and we've lost 15 of our last 20. Hey, that's fine. Next man up, next day. No, at some point somebody's got to say, no, it's not the next day. Let's talk about what just happened because the season's slipping through our fingers and we need to wake up quickly. Okay, I believe that matters. I remember a few years ago. I don't remember the exact year. You may, Matt.
Okay.
When the Phillies fired Joe Girardi early in the year. Remember that? They were about 22-29, if I remember correctly.
I think it was 2022.
And then after that, they went on a 38-19 stretch. You think that's just coincidence? Because
to the World Series.
Boog would tell you that's coincidence. He would say, oh, it was just random, and Girardi getting fired, it just was bad luck for Girardi. No, because that let everybody know in that clubhouse, it's wake up time, or you guys are going to be in trouble. Now, of course, I'm not advocating the Cubs should have fired Craig Counsell.
No.
I'm just making the point that there's times where urgency matters and you need to wake up. And the thing that's the most frustrating is just about a month ago, I watched this Red Sox documentary.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Where Theo Epstein's using those things. We were flat. We needed a lift. That fight with Veritek got us going. And there's Jed.
Yeah, he's right there.
So it just doesn't make sense. And I'm not this anti-new school guy. But I just think that there's a best of both worlds and too much of anything's not good. And I thought the Cubs were just too flat. And go watch Justin Steele in Milwaukee. He'll let you know what his feelings were about that.
Yeah, late June. That was a classic clip.
That wasn't a one-time thing. That wasn't just, I'm frustrated by this day and we moved on. That was pent-up frustration because this team knew that they let an opportunity slip away and they didn't play well enough and they were flat for 2 months. And you're always going to look flat when you don't hit. I get that. But there was an extra bit of it, and you know it.
Well, and I don't necessarily think of urgency as a personal thing. I think of it as a personnel thing.
Yeah.
When we talk about on the show, we say, why not have more urgency in terms of decision making?
100%.
And Kyle asked Boog about that as well, whether it's a change in the lineup, a change out of the bullpen, and Boog put that back on Kyle and talked about process. Listen to this.
For the people that are in on sense of urgency and you want not Adbert Alzolay, and you want to change the lineup, I totally get it. And it doesn't mean that you couldn't end up being right. What I'm saying is your argument and your process stinks, and we're not going to do it that way.
It's just strong language from Boog. Boog did note that his relationship with Council goes back, I think he said 30 years. Wow.
Listen. Leave it to the Cubs brass. Everybody's so smart, and we're not smart at all. And the last time we won the postseason, I was living at home. We won in a postseason game.
Right.
Everybody's so smart. Oh, well, the fans wanted Bryce Harper. Well, we know better. Nah. That wasn't. The fans didn't want this. Fine. I think talking to the fans like that's a little much.
It is.
It
is, and it's dismissive.
Yeah,
and then the next clip is Boog's worst take of them all.
Go ahead.
For example, the one that drives me bananas is like arguing for like Seiya clearly gets a crappy strike zone. I don't know what the reason is. I've tried to talk to some people in the league office. It's not like they're unaware. But when he gets pitches called off the outside edge of the plate,
right?
Craig can't see that.
No,
they can't see anything over there.
It's a bad thing.
So, like, I don't know what the fans want him to do. And then the other thing I would say is, it's another like that stuff doesn't matter, man.
Wow. I actually agree with him on the close ones that Council can't see.
Yeah, but can't you watch video after the fact?
Yeah, and then there's also egregious ones where Council will say something, and so it's like, and again, I think that take that I have is a slippery slope because I think I'm trying to. People think that I want him to get thrown out every game, and that's not the case. I just think once in a while, especially if he's struggling, to go out there and just say enough's enough would mean something to him and maybe mean something to the guys. But that's who Boog is. Like,
he's being too literal, though.
But don't you listen to him?
Accumulates.
But don't you listen to him on the broadcast? Like, this is who he is. So, like,
well, I put most of it on mute this year.
Oh, right, that's true. When people sent this to me on Twitter and it was like, Sam, Boog, it was almost like Boog was going after you. I was like, of course he is. We have completely opposite takes about baseball. That's why I have a hard time listening. He's said that exact same thing on the broadcast before. So none of that bothered, or none of that surprised me. And, he's entitled to his opinion, and he's exactly the type of guy the Cubs want calling their games. He's not going to be overly critical of the team. He's going to say exactly what they want him to say. I ain't like that. So it is what it is.
One more bonus clip right after this.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. For those listening on audio, I put on my cheese head. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. If you live play-by-play, it's so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I bet live when the Bears were up at halftime because I knew they'd find a way to lose. And I got my cheese head, George, Mr. McCaskey, because, on Sports Talk Radio, all I kept hearing today, Matt, was 11 in a row to the Packers, 11 in a row. Folks, it's far worse than that. You take away the 11 in a row, they still have lost 15 out of 18. It's been 26 of their last 29 games the Bears have lost to the Packers. I got a nice live bet at halftime. I took the Packers live and got a nice profit thanks to FanDuel. I got my cheese head on. Just visit FanDuel.com today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Wow, and a lot of Lincoln Riley talk on Monday as well about a possible Bears coaching candidate. Anyway, we close out with one more clip from the Setup Man interview with Boog Sciambi. And I think Kyle would admit he listens to our show frequently. Actually, we know he does. We don't even have to say that. And so I had some questions about this clip, but because I felt like we got left out a little bit. Take a listen to this.
Yeah. Well, and I think there was that little glimmer of hope of Cody Bellinger opting out and having $27.5 million available to you. And I heard it on one of the other podcasts recently. It was said really well. We keep talking about, the fans keep talking about, I wish Cody Bellinger would have opted out, almost like he's a bad player. He's not a bad player. A year ago, we were all begging for him.
Yeah.
A lot of fans were begging for him. And
Yo, one of the other podcasts.
Well, maybe another podcast mentioned it too.
Well, I'm sure they have, but should our show name not have gone in there?
You know what? Can I be honest?
We inspire a lot of other shows, do we not? I hear other shows mention our name all the time.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
I don't care for Boog to know our show.
Okay.
I really don't. Like I don't. I like.
You care
Kyle.
that Kyle inside us?
No.
Okay.
I
No,
don't.
I'm just joking about that one.
Yeah, he's kidding, folks.
Yeah, I'm joking.
And maybe and listen. The only thing that I want is the Cubs to win.
Right.
I don't
That's
care.
awesome.
I don't care about like
Man.
people can repeat.
You don't care about people's spikes or gloves?
People could say anything they want to say about me. They could say anything,
And they have.
and they have.
They've done that.
Yeah.
That was a great one. And, I'm a little bit more sensitive for you because, like, I look at you as my friend. So, like, but with me, you want to say something, whatever. Hey, Sam said this. Sam didn't said this. Just win.
Right.
Let's just win 90 games. If it takes me saying, I just want to win baseball games. I want to play postseason baseball. I want to do pre-game episodes in the postseason.
Yeah.
Postseason watch-alongs. I want to do post-game. I want to do 3-4 shows a day when the Cubs are playing in the NLCS. That's all I care about. Whether Boog knows our show, Kyle cites our show, Bill Simmons knows the show, Stephen A. Smith, Ernie Johnson, Shaq, Chuck.
Oh, wow.
Whoever it is.
Newsworthy.
They can know that I exist or they don't. Just win baseball games.
Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 20 to 30 minutes. We'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcast. Back tomorrow for even more fun on this program. He's Sam Olber. Oh, there's the cheesehead.
My cheesehead.
There's the cheesehead.
The Bears never win.
He's Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.
one of the other podcasts